Alright, so now we're going to do the other ones. Let's go ahead and get started. So we need to use the angle addition or summation or subtraction. So for sine, either you add it or subtract it, doesn't matter. For sine, when you add an angle plus or minus another angle, it's the same thing as saying sine of the first angle times the second plus. If this was plus, then this is also going to be plus. Sine the second angle cosine the first angle. If it was minus, then this will be minus. Alright? But now for cosine, cosine is the opposite. If this is plus, you do subtraction. If it was minus, you do addition. That's why this one is plus minus. It means you do either one, and this is minus plus. So it corresponds. The top goes with the top, the bottom goes with the bottom. So you add, then you subtract it, then you add. With this one, it's the same thing. Addition goes with addition, subtraction goes with subtraction. Alright, so we need to get 7/12. So best way to do this, let's see. So let's break up 7/12. So 7 pi over 12. That's the same thing as saying negative 3 pi over 12 plus negative 4 pi over 12, right? That gives you 7/12. Well, you can reduce negative 3/12, reduces down to negative 4 pi, pi over 4, and this reduces down to pi over 3. There you go. So those two are our two angles. So we have sine of negative pi over 4 plus negative pi over 3. Alright? So we know we're going to do, so we know it's going to be sine of negative pi over 4 times cosine of negative pi over 3 plus sine of, so now since it goes alpha to beta, this is alpha, this is beta, so now we're going to do beta, so we do negative pi over 3 times cosine of negative pi over 4. Alright, so now you might be saying, alright, well, that's cool and all, but I don't have my negative radians thing. So on your chart, I know you only have from 0 to pi, but you can work backwards from it, okay? So we know, let's see. So for sine, we know, let's put 0 here in the middle. So it's 0, pi over 6, pi over 4, and pi over 3, okay? So no, at 0, we know it's 0. Here it's 1/2. This is square root of 2 over 2, and this is square root of 3 over 2. Alright, so now we don't know negative pi over 6, or I don't want to say we don't know, we do know, but you don't have it. So remember how sine looks like. Sine goes up and down, up and down. So it's the opposite. Instead of going up, what do you think it's going to do? It's going to go down and then up. Down and then up. Okay? So we know these. So remember, like I said in the last video, these values, you're going to keep reusing these same values over and over and over again, except they're going to either be positive or negative. So now let's think about it. Negative pi over 6, pi over 6 is here. Negative pi over 6 is here. So it's the same thing, except now everything is going to be negative. So this is negative 1/2. This is negative square root of 2 over 2. And this is negative square root of 3 over 2. The other reason why is because sine is odd. It's an odd function. So that just means that sine of x is equal to negative sine of x. Yeah. Alright, so negative x. Sorry. So it doesn't matter. So you're going to put it in, it's just going to be negative. Okay? That's all that sine means. Alright. So now we have our two values. So we have sine of negative pi over 4. So that is going to be negative square root of 2 over 2 times cosine of, oh, now we're going to do cosine, my bad. So let's erase this and let's do cosine. So let's do cosine. So cosine, it's the same thing, but now with cosine, cosine is even. Cosine is even, meaning that it is going to be the same values. So the negative is going to be the same value. So like it's odd. So sine is odd. So this is positive. Then the negative value is going to be negative. You know. So for cosine, cosine is even. So that just means that when they're opposite, then the values are still going to be the same. Okay. So these still stay the same. Okay, and again, if you don't believe me, then you just draw the cosine curve again. So this is up, so you know it has to start somewhere else. So you can see that it's even because it's reflective across the y-axis. So this point is the same as here. This point is the same as there, and so on and so on. Okay, so you know cosine is even. All right, and that just means cosine of x is equal to cosine of negative x. All right. So now now we can do this stuff. Finally. So let's go down one line. All right. So sine of negative pi fourths. Negative pi fourths is negative square root of 2 over 2. We're going to multiply that by cosine of negative pi over 3. Cosine of negative pi over 3 is just 1/2. And it'd be plus sine of negative 3/2 of negative pi over 3. So that is negative square root of 3 over 2. Now cosine of negative pi over 4, which is square root of 2 over 2. So now we combine, or just multiply. So square root of 2 times 2 is just negative square root of 2. 2 times 2 is just 4. And then we do the same thing. Square root of 3 times the square root of 2 is the square root of 6. And again, we have 4. Alright, so now you just subtract them. And you put it all over 4 because they have the same thing. Alright, so now that is your final answer. Alright. So yeah, I know you don't have your negative values. I know you only have 0 to pi. But it's all the same thing. It's still the same. So remember with sine, it follows the same thing here, except you're going to multiply by negative. Cosine, you just rewrite it. You just rewrite it going the other way. So it follows the same pattern this way as it does that way. Alright? So now let's do the same thing for cosine. So it's cosine of negative pi over 12. Cosine of negative pi over 12. Alright, so we've got to think of two things that would give us negative 12. So negative 12 will be negative pi over 12. So that's square root of, so that's 3 pi. Negative 3 pi over 12 plus 2 pi over 12. That gives you negative pi over 12, right? Good. So now let's simplify this. Negative pi over 12, that gives you negative pi over 4. And this gives you pi over 6. Alright? Yeah, so that works out. So we have those two values as well. So let's rewrite the equation, the format. So you know cosine is cosines of both minus sines of the other. So we have cosine of negative pi over 4 plus pi over 6. And that should give you that. Let me make sure I did this right. 3 over 12, so this is 2 pi over 4. That is correct. That is correct. Alright. 6 and 4, 2, 24. Yeah. Alright, cool. Alright. So now let's write it. So it'll be cosine of negative pi over 4 times cosine of pi over 6. Now since we are adding, we are going to subtract the product of cosine from the product of sine. Product of sine from the product of cosine. So it's going to be sine of negative pi over 4 times, oops, my bad. It's just going to be just times sine of pi over 6. So I'm using the table we have from up top. We know cosine of pi over 4 is just square root of 2 over 2. Cosine of pi over 6 is square root of 3 over 2. And this is going to give us square root of 6 over 4. Now sine of negative pi over 4, we know that is of negative pi over 4 is negative square root of 2 over 2. So negative square root of 2 over 2. And sine of pi over 6 is just 1/2. So we know this is going to be negative square root of 2 over 4. So you combine like things. Negative square root of negative 6 minus the square root of 2 all over 4. And again, you cannot reduce this anymore because they're not the same. Square root of 6, you cannot subtract the square root of 2 and say it's square root of 4. That's not right. Okay, so this is going to be your final answer. Alright, so the best way to do this is just to play around with this and see what gives you this. Don't worry about reducing it first. Just try getting any two numbers that will give you this answer, and then see if they're reduced down into stuff you have. So when you're reducing, you need to make sure they're reduced down to pi over 3, pi over 4, pi over 6, or anything like that. Any pi over 4, any pi over 3, or any pi over 6, and you'll be fine. Alright? Good. Again, if you have any questions, just remember, just give me a call.